On this episode, I'm going to show you how to make the best recipe for homemade chocolate chip cookies with a few techniques and the perfect combination of ingredients. This recipe will give you that crispy, ooey gooey chocolate goodness that you love in homemade cookies. The first thing we're going to do is set up the stand mixer. We're using the stand mixer because it's easier to cream that butter. We're also going to be using the paddle attachment. For making cookies, the paddle attachment is perfect. Now, you'll notice that this recipe has a little bit more butter than your average cookie recipe. And the reason behind that, it gives it a richer cookie, and I think it tastes wonderful. It'll have that soft center. For that soft center also, we're using a ratio of brown sugar and white sugar 50%. Brown sugar has 10% molasses, so this makes a cookie actually be softer, whereas white sugar makes a cookie crispy. So now we've got the balance of the crispiness with the softness. Also, the light brown sugar gives it a little bit of a caramel note to that cookie that I just love. Something that I like to do is actually add the baking soda at this point. That way I know it's evenly distributed. And the baking soda, it's not only going to be a leavening agent, it's going to help the cookies brown. It changes the pH. So we're going to add the paddle attachment to the stand mixer, and we're going to start to cream this. And it's going to take several minutes just to cream it, and then we're incorporating some large eggs. I've always found having your ingredients at room temperature is best for baking. Turning it up now. And I'm going to scrape this down. And like with most stand mixers, you may have to just stop it and scrape down. At the bottom, you often see you'll get a little well of flour and sugar, etc. And we've got 2 large eggs, and these are room temperature as well. Let this come together. I'm going to turn this down. I'm going to add the vanilla extract, and I'm going to add the salt. You always want a little bit of salt. Remember, we're not using salted butter, but that little bit of salt against the sweet is a lovely combination. I'm going to turn this down. I'm just going to show you. It's nicely creamed now. As you take a look, it's airy and it's nice. Now that we've scraped the bowl down, I'm going to add some all-purpose flour. It's the perfect flour for cookies and cakes as well. It has about between 10% and 11.2% protein, which is going to give us a nice chew to the cookie. If you just add it all at once and then just have the mixer on slow, it incorporates well, because I don't want to battle against this paddle, but I'm going to turn it on ever so slowly on its lowest setting now, so this can just incorporate in. And what we're looking for now is just to incorporate the flour and the butter. When it comes to chocolate for this chocolate chip cookie, I like to use chocolate chips. However, there are a couple of other options on the market. There's chocolate chunks. Now, chocolate chunks is made from chocolate bars, which will have more cocoa butter in them. So whenever you use chocolate chunks in baking, it has a tendency to spread more. You can also see these fine chocolates, these pastels, which you'll see fine chocolatiers using. They're good as well. However, I've found that chocolate chips, they're perfectly designed for baking. With them having a lower cocoa butter, they don't spread as much, so they're perfect for chocolate chip cookies, and that's what we're using today. As we bring the mixture out, you can see that the flour is incorporated. You've got this creamy, soft dough, and I just want to scrape it down one more time, just to make sure there's not a well in the bottom. So at this stage now, we're going to incorporate our chocolate chips, and I'm using about 10 ounces of chocolate chips. I think this is a good amount for this cookie recipe. I'm just going to turn it on slowly. The chocolate chips have worked into that cookie dough. This is the hardest part, resisting not taking a piece. When I was designing this recipe, I wanted something with a lot of butter, so that meant I'm gonna have to freeze it, because when I put it in the oven, if it was room temperature, it's just gonna spread and you'll end up with this pancake-like looking cookie. When it comes to scooping them out, I'm using an ice cream scoop, and then I'm just going to use a scraper just to give us even amounts, so like this, and then onto some parchment paper. Really easy. If you don't have an ice cream scoop, you could just pinch a piece and roll it into a ball. Now that we've scooped them out, I'm gonna place this tray in the freezer. I want the cookies to be frozen solid. After that, I'm gonna take them off the tray and place them into a sealable bag. That way, they're ready. They're gonna last a couple of months. Anytime I want a cookie, I can just place them on the tray with some parchment paper into the oven and bake them off. They've frozen perfectly. It's always a good idea when you use a sealable bag, I say, to use 2. That will help them from getting freezer burn. And I'm gonna add about 12 cookies to the tray. And these are gonna cook perfectly. We want to allow the air to flow around them and also the cookie to spread. And I always make 1 tray of cookies at a time. Temptation wants us to make 2, but I've always found that it's harder for the oven to recover and you end up with uneven baking. Off to the oven they go. When they come out, I like to sit them on a cooling rack or a trivet. This lets the air circulate below the tray and cool the tray down as quick as we can, because we want to stop the cooking process. We need to let the cookies sit on the tray for at least 10 minutes just so they can set. If you go to pick them up now, they're going to fall apart. When you do make these at home, feel free to adjust the time to how you like them cooked. You're looking for the edges to be set in just a little bit of golden color. If you like your cookie really crispy, let them cook for another couple more minutes. They'll get darker in color and that will set them further. As I break the cookie in half, you can see how the chocolate's melted, the crisp edge of that cookie. All this needs is to be dunked in a glass of chilled milk. Happy days.